Unit 3 objectives for forensic science. These are the items that you guys need to be able to do once you've gone through the lesson. So you should be able to do this on your own without looking at your notes, without having to go back and look at the lesson. You should be able to answer these things just off the top of your head. If you can do that, that means you thoroughly went through the lesson and that you were paying attention. If you're not able to do these on your own without looking at notes or without looking back at the lesson, all right, this is a good checkpoint to make sure that you get the material that you missed. So these objectives for Unit 3, learn about the 3 types of evidence, and there's actually 4 types of evidence that were talked about. So we're going to talk about 4 instead of 3. Examine the difference between individual and class characteristics and what they mean for crime investigations. Discuss how physical and chemical properties help forensic scientists compare samples. Investigate glass fragments and soil as physical evidence and what they can tell forensic scientists about a crime. And then discuss how impressions like footprints and tire tracks are collected and analyzed. All right, so let's do number 1. Learn about the different types of evidence. So you guys will notice that these are similar to your text questions, these objectives, and that's purposeful, okay? So let's get us a text box here and let's talk about the very first objective. Learn about the different types of evidence. Somebody, either of you ladies, tell me, what were any of the 4? We're going to talk about all 4, so just name off the 4, one of the 4, describe it, and maybe give me an example. Different types of evidence. All right, physical. Good. Physical evidence, go ahead and describe physical evidence and give me an example. And whoever the teacher or the facilitator is in the lab, if they'll let you use your mics, I don't mind if you ladies use your mics, okay? Or you're welcome to chat in the text box, the chat box. Either way, it's probably just quicker if you use your mics, but it may give you feedback. But we'll try it if you want to. So what about physical evidence? Right. Mm-hmm. Good. Perfect. And I'm so glad you used your microphone. You totally get kudos for being brave because I never get anybody to use the mic. So physical evidence. Yes, it's those physical items. You can physically see them. You can physically touch them. It's things like weapons, hair, blood, fiber, fingerprints, which fingerprints, I guess we can touch fingerprints, but if you touch them, you're probably going to smear them and mess them up. So yes, that one's kind of a fine line, but yes, fingerprints because we can dust them and actually get a impression or an imprint of the fingerprint and we can actually hold that. So these are items that are real and can be used. What's some more? Anybody? You've got 3 more. I'm so sorry. You know, and it's really hard for me to do that with you guys because it's probably listed somewhere and I'm just not seeing it. And then you guys post crazy funny pictures as your profile pictures and it's not really you. So I'm totally sorry, Noelle. I apologize. You guys just have to tell me. It's like when I butcher your names, you just have to say, Miss Moxley, that is not my name at all, and you have to tell me. And it's just because I'm not there that I don't know. Obviously, if I could see you, I would realize that you're a boy and not a girl, but I don't get to see your lovely face. All right, so come on, what's those other evidences? There's 3 more. Good. Right. Perfect. So documentary evidence, anything that you can record. And there's different forms of recording. You can write it out. It can be physically recorded, like with us here. I'm recording this and you guys can hear the recording. Pictures would also be considered part of that documentary evidence. All right. 2 more. Yes, ma'am. Right. So anything to help recreate the crime scene. So once forensic scientists collect the evidence, to be able to take it back to the lab and recreate the crime scene. All right. Go ahead. That's right. Mm-hmm. So we never use the vocabulary term to describe the vocabulary term. Good example there. So I hate to say this, but testimony is basically somebody giving their testimony. So testimony evidence is a testimony. Like I said, we never use a vocab term to describe a vocab term, but that's what it is here in this case, okay? Anybody have any questions over Objective 1? You did a great job, Catherine, and I appreciate you jumping on the mic. We have physical, documentary, demonstrative, and testimony. All right, so Noelle, we're going to put you on the spotlight for the next one. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. I only let you guys volunteer. I don't force you. Not too much anyways. Oh, we'll see. And I can't even tell because I can't see you guys. All right. Examine the difference between individual and class characteristics and what they mean for crime investigations. All right. 2 things here. We need to define individual and class characteristics. We may want to give some examples, and then we need to discuss what's different. So actually 3 things if we're giving examples. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So again, not to use a vocabulary term to define a vocabulary term, but individual characteristics. We're talking about people's characteristics. Characteristics are specific to individual people. That's just like when in biology you're talking about genes or phenotypes. You're talking about things that are specific to individual people. So for example, fingerprints are specific to individual people. All right, class characteristics. Mm-hmm. So think of this as a brand. When you think of this, if you think of a specific brand, and I always think of sports gear when I think of brands. You have Nike, you have Adidas, you have all kinds of different sports brands, and there are characteristics specific to those sports brands. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about items that are grouped together that all have a common or common characteristics. Could be multiple characteristics. Good. You're doing great, Noelle. Catherine, I'm sorry. I have Noel on the brain. Is he back? All right. Noel, your turn. I'm just kidding. You don't have to jump on the mic, but it would be lovely if you would. Objective 3. Discuss how physical and chemical properties help forensic scientists compare samples. So we need to define each, give some examples, and talk about it. Mm-hmm. They're things that you can see. They're characteristics that you can see. So think of your senses when we're talking about physical characteristics, physical properties. We're talking about color, we're talking about size, we're talking about weight, and if it's a liquid, we're talking about volume. So those are all parts of a physical property. And then chemical properties. Right. That's a great example, an explosion. So the chemicals that took place for an explosion to occur. We could talk about mixed drug toxicity here, or mixing drugs together in general here. So chemical properties, we're talking about any sorts of chemical substances, whether they're liquid or powder or element form, and then combining and reacting. So how do these properties help forensic scientists compare samples? All right, so think about it this way. Let me help you out. Physical properties like fingerprints are all going to have specific characteristics like size or ridges. All right, scientists are going to look at all of these physical properties with this evidence. They're going to use that as part of the evidence, all the details. Chemical properties is another type of a detail, and it's going to be specific to that crime scene. So all of these details are specific to crime scenes. They're specific to either individuals or groups, classes. And all of these details are going to help either determine if someone is guilty or determine if someone is innocent. All right, so just think of these as details that are going to help forensic scientists. All right, objective 4. We're going to talk about glass and soil samples. All right, and what we're going to have to do is just scroll down on this one because I'm out of pages here. So investigate glass fragments and soil as physical evidence, and what can they tell forensic scientists about a crime? So we're at the very bottom of the page there. Let's talk about glass fragments and soil as evidence. Yes, ma'am. Or where it came from, because soil is specific to certain places, right? All right, so perfect. So as far as soil samples go and glass fragments. There's a bunch of different